how do you make a career in show business? Join us on the set where we meet groundbreaking Hollywood talents who made bold decisions to pursue their dreams of making entertainment history on screen.
Hey, I'm Sean Edwards, bringing you another episode of On the Set, where we take you behind the scenes on some of Hollywood's biggest movies and TV shows as I introduce you to some of the individuals who make it happen behind the scenes.
All right, so I'm so excited for this new season of On the Set, where we tell the story of all the people that make movie magic happen, the lines and the credit at the end of the screen that y'all like to walk out for, but that's so important because it shows that there's so many people that's a part of this movie process. And for this one, we have Zuri Pryor Graves, who plays such an important part in so many TV shows and movies, and it's so necessary. She's an intimacy coordinator. So we're going to get down to the bottom of what that is, how that happened, and how she got there with this thing. So first, welcome, Zuri. Thank you for taking the time to talk with Black Tree for On the Set.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Jamal. Appreciate you.
So for the audience, because I read up a little about it, let's just first say, what is an intimacy coordinator?
Yes, an intimacy coordinator is an individual on a set that contributes to the safety and psychological and emotional safety during scenes of intimacy. So we act as liaisons between actors and production, and we also act as choreographers. We do anything that is necessary, both in front of the camera and behind the scenes, to make sure that people have everything that they need during intimate scenes.
Has this position always been a part of the movie making process? I know when we started talking about sensitivities around Me Too and everything else, a lot of stuff changed and the industry adjusted to that. But has this, like, when you go way back, like, how has this always been a part of the process, or is this a newer position?
It is a newer position. Originally, it started in the theater world, and those folks are called intimacy directors, and they came from like fight coordinators and stunt coordinators in that world. But at like you mentioned, the Me Too movement in 2017 is kind of where the birth of bringing that work into TV and film started. And the first person was Alicia Rodas on a set of The Deuce. It was like an HBO show. And from then on, we've tried to increase awareness and, and implement different standards and practices to really bring this job to life.
So what was your path into this position and this new career? Like, what led you to that? What were you doing before that? Like, could you tell us, like, how did that process happen?
Okay, well, my route is a little unconventional, so I'll try my best to make it brief and concise. But I am a therapist. I'm a clinician. I'm a sex therapist, and I moved down to Atlanta, which is Black Hollywood, and this was furthest from my mind in 2018, and by 2019, I'd gotten my little taste of being in Black Hollywood and being around TV and film sets and things, and just trying to figure out, okay, how do I, if I do decide I want to enter into this world, how do I blend these two things kind of together? And I thought I was making it up. I thought that I was going to come onto a set and be like a set therapist for vulnerable moments. And because my lens is sex and sexuality, I was looking for opportunities to kind of support those people going in participating in these scenes. And just coincidentally, it was at the birth of, it was 2019, and which is when intimacy coordinators really started to be something that productions were asking for, that were like, we were trying to figure out what it was going to be. And it was a bunch of stunt women and people from theater who saw the need, and a lot of them had years and years of experience on set. And then I came in with a therapy kind of mindset and tried my best to make some contributions, and was told very, very much that it's not therapy. It's not on-set therapy, but being able to come at this work from a therapeutic lens has definitely been helpful. But we all just kind of came together, and it is now what it has come to be.
And it's not always super sexual, because I know, like, one of your latest projects is the piano lesson that's now streaming and was on Netflix and was been in theaters. Something that we'll be talking about throughout the award season because it's such a great film.
Yes.
August Wilson made it to a film by Malcolm Washington, his directorial debut, and has Danielle Deadwyler and Ray Fisher
Mhm.
and John David Washington and so many more great people in this movie. I know that Ray Fisher and Danielle Deadwyler has a scene where he's like sniffing her neck and he kissed, that, but it wasn't a lot of overt sexuality in it. So like where does your role how does your role adapt to that type of movie film as opposed to something that would be a more risque, so to speak?
Absolutely. And what's funny is I actually wasn't even a part of that scene. That because we are like intimacy, they're not deeming a lot of like kissing or anytime there isn't simulated sex or nudity involved. A lot of times it's not getting flagged for support needing from an intimacy coordinator. But I was invited to the film because of the sensitive nature of the work. So I was invited as not only an intimacy coordinator, but also mental health support for the set. I feel Netflix came up with a term for me. It's like sensitivity consultant. So that was like, so that is a completely different role, but I got to it through being an intimacy coordinator. So the scene that they invited me in for was the scene in the kitchen with the bathtub, with Danielle getting into the bathtub. So coordinating and what that would look like on something like that was writing up contracts that protect that actress to make sure that we know there is no nudity in that scene, but we are telling the story that this person is naked. So how do we do that? How do we do that safely within the actor's boundaries? So coordinating with wardrobe to make sure that they have garments that are appropriate, knowing what the camera's angles are so that we can shoot around anything that we potentially could see, but we could still do a really good and creative job of telling that story.
Is it called a nudity ride? What's the
Yes.
rider? Uh, like how? I mean, from actor to actor, like how different does like there's levels of people that are like, look, I'm down with everything. Some people like I could show breasts. Some people like not, like how does that? How do you see that like differ between a Daniel Deadwyler and uh uh
Yeah.
Lila Anthony or somebody? Like what's
Mhm.
do you see like a
Two
lot of
amazing
variation?
actresses. Yeah, two amazing actresses. I've worked with both, and I've worked with them on different. So it's sometimes it's about the actor. A lot of times it's about the production and it's about the network. So if you're talking about Power, you're talking about BMF. The limitations that they have are going to be a lot different than what Netflix has. So I'm not even gonna breach a conversation with an actor for a Netflix show to be like, how much are you comfortable with showing? Because regardless of what they're comfortable with, the network has its limitations, right? So after I know what the network's limitations are, then I can have those conversations with the actors to feel like what they're comfortable with. But also knowing what the directors are looking for and finding different ways to kind of bridge those things together and make sure that there's collaboration there, because there is a way to tell if a director's like, no, I want them to be butterball naked and I want all of this stuff or whatever, and the person's like, I don't want to be naked, we can still tell that story. We just have to do it creatively. And the nudity writers that you're mentioning and the simulated sex writers, a lot of times when an actor is hired, they have a show or a movie writer that's built into their contract. What I help to negotiate and write language for are for scene specific documents that supplement their contracts. So it's an additional document after they've been hired, and it is scene specific. So it's not like, oh, this person consents to all of these things for all of these scenes. It's like for a scene like a shower scene or a bathtub scene, it may be player consents to above the waist frontal nudity, no below the waist nudity, with the exception of nipple and areola. Like we could get that specific in terms of nudity. We can get even more specific in terms of movement. Like if we're doing simulated sex writer language and it's like player consents to this specific action with this specific person in this specific way. And what that does is it helps protect actors. So we can't get there on the day. You can always scale back. Like if we
Right.
get there and we're on the set and we've rehearsed it, everything was fine, and we get in there and it's like, no, actually, I don't want to do that anymore. then we can always rewrite those contracts to do less. But we cannot ever ask a person after they've signed a contract to do any more than what's in that contract that's been decided on by them, myself, the director, the people, their teams or whatever. And that just helps protect both the actor and the production.
I gotta ask this because it's my curiosity, so I'm sure a lot of the audience may wonder this also. When you have a simulated sexual scene, I mean, we're men and women, so like you put me in a scene with Halle Berry, and I'm laying down, I might physically react to that. Yeah, even though I'm trying to be a professional with my co-actor or whatever.
Right.
How do they create those scenes and protect people's natural
I got you.
Yeah.
I got you. No, I understand what you're saying. I get this question a lot, and I think like I can answer that question, but to back it up a little bit, talking about the pre-work that's involved. Firstly, no one's ever actually having sex. No body parts, no genitals are ever touching. Everything is always protected, and I can elaborate on that a little bit. But there are a lot of misconceptions about some of these scenes, and I feel like some people are like, "But that wasn't real," and I'm like, "That means somebody did a really good job." That's what you want. That's our whole thing, is to create realism and come up with creative ways to make sure that those scenes do look and feel very, very real. And in that realism that we're creating, we do have conversations about bodily reactions, and people with internal genitalia, like those reactions are still potentially happening, but they're a lot less obvious. So coming up with fail safes, whether it's little pieces of communication or different things, like if somebody needs to take a break, because the idea is that we're all working, and if you are in a position where you're either taking yourself out of the work, albeit because maybe you've gone to a place where you didn't expect to go in terms of being a character, especially like people who, who are method actors who are like, no, this is really happening. And it's like, it's not really happening. And they do end up having a lot of times those bodily reactions. But we do, these things are probably some of the most unsexy things that anybody could ever do. You've got so many people in the room. Like we have a closed set, we have the fewest number of people on set that are necessary to do the shot. Anybody that's not completely essential to the shot is not present. But even still, that's quite a number of people, for sound and lighting and, director, myself. It's a lot of people watching people do these things. So we do as much as we can in rehearsals, blocking everything out. If I'm working with the dancer, a lot of times they want an 8 count. We'll come up with an 8 count, and it's like hand here, head here. And by the time somebody's remembering to do all of those things and making these actions repeatable, because they're having to do these things over and over and over at different angles for a long period of time. So keeping all of those things in mind, a lot of times the bodily reactions that we might think would happen don't. But in the event that they do, anytime we are in these scenes, we have modesty barriers and garments. A barrier is anything that covers the genitals. So it could be, we have these big giant, I wish I had, I have some stuff over there, I can pull it out, but big giant stickers that go over people's genitals that hold everything down. We borrow from the dance community and put dance belts on people, cock socks, all different kinds of things. And so that would be a barrier. Something that would act as an additional desensitization would be any kind of padding. So I'll add padding and things, and I have those conversations with my penis folks ahead of time to figure out, and they can tell me. Some people are a lot more sensitive than others. Some people knowing going into the choreography that we've created that they're likely to have a reaction. So just being able to make sure that communication is happening and creating like a container for it. And it's like, okay, if this happens, do you want to pause? And if not, like making sure we're talking to all parties involved to be like, hey, let's make a shift here. But a lot of times people aren't even pelvis to pelvis to even know. It just looks that way. We can do a whole oral sex scene and people could be on opposite sides of the bed. And you'd never know.
In the choreography, because I know stunt coordinators, they, whatever style of fighting they're doing, they study fighting or whatever. When you're choreographing a sensual scene, where are you pulling this stuff from? I mean, do you watch? You go to X-Vids? Like, how do you like? What do you say? Like, okay, this would be a great way to pull off this scene and make it real sensual. Like, how you where? I mean, I know that part of your thing is sexuality, everything else, but how are you choreographing this? Like, where do you draw from?
Um, that's a very interesting question. I mean, if I'm honest, I think I pull from personal experience, whether, and a lot of my personal experience is textbook related. And just coming from that world of sexuality, being around it, seeing it, being a part of it. And also I watch a lot of film. I record, I mean, if you looked at my text messages, my emails, my cloud, it's pretty interesting in there because I do take a lot from what's been done. And actually something that I've realized is a missing piece in what we're doing is being able to storyboard and not use porn and not use I want to be able to talk to a director, and some directors are like, yeah, I want this, and this, and I can block it out. I can talk to my actors. And some directors are like, well, I don't know, maybe this or maybe that. And then that's when it really is important for me to find images or find videos or find examples of things. And I have a hard time finding things that are not white and that are not, I prefer to not show people things that other people are nude. You get in the whole ego, compare all these different things. So I'm actually creating 100 image base. I hired an artist to create 100 images for me of different positions with different body types. So people of all different, even folks in wheelchairs, different ability levels, all different kinds of things, races, with coverings on their bodies and their line drawings. So that's what I'm going to start using and trying to encourage other intimacy coordinators to use to storyboard, and also to try to create things that are different. That's always my thing. It's like if I see so many times people either want somebody sitting on top of somebody or somebody behind, and that's like it. And I'm like, well, can we try this? Can we try that? And just trying to get really creative and doing some stealthy internet searches and things.
So at this point, do you know where the camera should be at these points now? Like from doing it, are you coordinate the movements of the actors and in your mind, do you know where the camera should be placed to shoot the scene? Like, I mean, are you foreseeing that much at this point?
I do. I do. But there's a lane I work. So the role of an intimacy coordinator is creative, but it's also on the production side of because we're legal, we're handholders, we're all this. So we have to walk that fine line. So it is important that I understand camera angles. I understand language around lenses and all of these things, but it is my job to ask the questions. And to make suggestions around what the director already has in mind. So if a director should ideally know how they want to shoot it, and if they don't, they're working with the DP, the director of photography, to figure out exactly how they want to shoot a thing. That information is crucial, that I have that information before I go into rehearsal, because it would suck to choreograph an entire thing. The worst case scenario is I don't get a rehearsal. Second worst case scenario is I've never seen the set and I have no idea what the angles are. We can't get a rehearsal on the set and they expect me to choreograph a scene. Because you're asking with angles and things, if I don't know those things, we could choreograph an entire scene, but we don't have maybe sheets to cover things up. And I have two actors who have no nudity in their contracts, and you want to shoot a scene in 360 and it's we can't do that. And it sucks to come into the day and be like, we either have to change all of our choreography or kind of pulling a power card that I don't want to pull and be like, director, sir, ma'am, person, you actually can't, we can't do that. So yeah, those questions are really super important.
As film and TV becomes more risque, because I don't, just going back, and I watched so much film and TV as a critic, recently I've started to see, men's penises on TV. Like what? Maybe Rage in Harlem or something, one of those old, but never I used to see this. And now as this becomes more a part of storytelling and what they tell, but do you see that this this skill set and there'll be more need for these type of people in the industry to come in and play these parts because they're doing it on more and more sets for TV and film now?
Yeah, I think, and it's interesting to hear different people's perspectives because you've got the perspective that now we're seeing more. And that because we're seeing more, that, we'll continue to see more. And I've spoken to a lot of people who are like, I am so tired of seeing these things. And a lot of these people are filmmakers. So they're doing a lot less. So it's just kind of like this ebb and flow. And I think regardless of the direction that the industry goes in, I hope that people see the value in having this position around. Because if you've ever, I mean, you've been on a film set, but for those who haven't, there's so much hustle and bustle. There's so many moving pieces. Everybody's, laser focused on their job. And even in a scene like the scene we were talking about with Danielle and the kiss, I would have loved to be there. But it's not anything that anybody flagged, and they were fine. But in the event that you have actors who are maybe not, why not just have that fail safe? It doesn't do anything but help a production. To just have that person there who my sole job and my sole focus are these people, and getting them what they need and supporting them how they want. So I'm hoping that we just become a staple. And just like if you have, even if somebody throws a punch, even if it's like a fake punch or something, you're inviting a stunt coordinator. So at what point in time are we going to start drawing the line to include things that it doesn't matter if you feel like it's sensitive? It doesn't have to be sensitive to you, but in the event that it could be sensitive to someone else, it doesn't hurt to just have someone there. So I feel like that's my take on that. But I have a feeling right now we're in a place where people are actually going to start doing less overt nudity, simulated sex, and intimacy. Yeah. And I'll just say one more thing on that. I think part of it is us. I think people don't understand that we're there to help the creative and push the stories forward. Every time I walk onto a set, a lot of times they think I'm the police, like I'm HR, or I'm trying to limit creativity and I'm trying to keep people from being naked and I'm trying to limit sex and all. And it's like, no, it's like, I do this because I love it. I just want it to be good. And I want it, while it's good, I want people to feel safe doing it. So I hope that as people understand this role more, will be more invited to be a part of the creative team to make these things happen, instead of people on the creative side feeling limited by the fact that this position is growing.
Okay, so I gotta get up. I'm curious. Like when you look at these scenes done correctly, or you just think historically, like what are some great love scenes you've seen on TV or film? Maybe some of the stuff you worked on or not.
Okay.
Just
I will say
three of them.
real. Okay. Okay. I'll go with one that I've worked on, and then two of my favorites. One of my favorites is definitely Jason's lyric. I feel like it's the one I go to if I'm looking for like romantic inspiration. I feel like it's tender, it's sweet, and it just feels very, very real. And the second I more recently saw, and I feel like it's probably the longest sex scene I've ever seen that I feel like was done extremely well, and the actors were super generous, was Original Sin. I don't know if you've seen it, with Angelina Jolie.
Oh yeah.
I highly recommend that one if you're, if you're looking for something. And then more recently, I worked on the production of Reasonable Doubt. And I had the opportunity to work with two, and I used the word generous a minute ago, but I feel like that's the biggest contributor to what makes a good scene. Like you need two people who are committed to doing it, because otherwise you read the discomfort on screen. And I think that these two actors really took the time to build a rapport with each other and a language that was all their own, to make sure that they had a container for all the consent that needed to be given for their scene. But it's a scene in a hotel room, and it's got a level of just like real sensual connection, and and just it's just a really, I think it's a really powerful scene. Like there's a wig removal, and it's just kind of like a I see you moment. And I was really really grateful to, and I got to work with the director I've worked with before, and it was a female director, and we just, I don't know, I think the actors and we all just like went two toes deep, and we're like, we're gonna do this, and they made it really really powerful.
All right. I think since we all been hearing so much about Denzel, because I feel like this is another one of his nomination years, I got to give a shout out to Devil in a Blue Dress with Lisa Nicole Carson, who was always also in Jason's lyric talk about, I want somebody to rub these feet. Like this my favorite actors of the time. But Denzel and Lisa Nicole Carson have a love scene in Devil in a Blue Dress that I just think is like is really intimate. I kind of like it. That's one of my favorites.
Okay, well, you made a list for me because I don't think I've ever seen that. So I will have to go check that out.
Go check that out. So well that's great. We got I hope people could go watch Reasonable Doubt and see
Yes, please.
that and check that out, and definitely go see Piano Lesson. And so next question.
In an ideal year, how many sets were you in productions would you be working on through the year? And do you get like a season off, or it's just dependent? Like, do you have like months that you block off where I'm not going to work, or how does that go?
No, unfortunately, I've not gotten to the place where I have that luxury. The thing about it being in this position, we're day players. And I really appreciate, that's another thing I appreciate about Piano Lesson. I was a day player, but they brought me in way more than they had to because of the way they looked out for their people. There were days where it was like, maybe this potentially could be sensitive, so we're going to have you here, and I was happy to be there. But a lot of productions aren't like that. The first thing that's going to get cut are some of these newer positions that for one reason or the other, people don't see the value in. And it's a lot of the people now who are directing and their EPs, they're former actors who didn't have this position. So it's not surprising to me that we are some of the first people to get cut. And I know a lot of that's personal. And I've had some conversations with people about that. They didn't have that support. And for them, it's like, and I was fine. And it's like, are you though? Because you're bitter now. But and it's unfortunate. And, a lot of people have I've heard some really horrific stories. But no, so as a day player, I could be on 3 or 4 movies or shows at a time for maybe 3 or 4 months. And out of those 3 or 4 shows, work a total of 10 days because they don't have intimacy every day. So they're not bringing me in so it's really challenging right now because I could be, like I said, I could be on 4 shows and then I might get a call about another one and I'm terrified to take it because inevitably what's going to happen is I'm needed at all 4 places on one day. And it's the one day that week that I'm working.
Freaky Friday. They're going to have
But it happens. I mean, it happens a lot. And with with TV and film, I might be there for one scene. But depending on how that day is going, like I could be called in too early or they move the scene or whatever. And I could be there for 10 hours to be on set for an hour. So it's different. Like I can't really double book myself. So that is a very challenging thing that I try to teach to people who are really, because I get inbox call every day. I want to be an intimacy choreographer. And I'm like, do you though? What else do you have going on? What else are you doing? Like for me on the back end, I'm developing an entire intimacy coordinating company, with merch and doing all these different things. If I wasn't doing that, I'd probably A, be bored and B, be broke. Like it's not, we're waiting. This is already every day it's bigger than it was yesterday. But in doing this for 5 years and probably working more than most ICs in the business, it's still sometimes not enough, so it's coming. It's coming.
Well, I thank you for your time. I got to tell people like all the great work you've done. Of course, you have to see Piano Lesson right now.
Yes.
Found, Wicked City, Reasonable Doubt. P-Valley, right?
Hmm.
Fly Me to the Moon, BMF series, The Family Plan, Bosch Legacy. You've been doing a lot of work. Just check her out, follow her, and maybe you could be in a scene or be an IC one day. But she's going to show you how it's done, and I really appreciate your time. Zuri. We'll hope that this position keeps rising to the top and see you on a lot more sets.
I really appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of On the Set, and that is a wrap. Thank you, Zuri.
I need that black tree TV. I need that black tree TV. I need that black tree TV. Black tree TV.